For anyone who watches this who has watched previous videos and is like, yeah. And is like, oh my gosh, where have you been? No one thinks that, actually. I don't have a following. And if you're wondering where the old videos went, I am revamping the channel, so there's that. But yeah, life has been crazy, and I haven't really had any motivation or ideas for the channel, so I've just been kind of avoiding it altogether. Time has been going by, and I haven't really been paying attention, and then poof, it's been however many months it's been, and I haven't really actually noticed. So, just the same old, same old. Ignore me dressed like this in the heat of Florida. I am dying for sure, but my dysphoria is worse than the heat. I think I can manage it. So, hello. For a little introduction to me. Hi, my name is Mateo. I am a trans man. I am kind of pre-physical transition. I've transitioned socially, but I cannot afford to transition physically right now. So we're still waiting on that. But I am trans. I like to talk about social things and communities, especially ones that I am in, drama, all the fun stuff. I just really like talking about it. I like talking about mental health, my experiences, etc. And that's kind of what this channel is going to be. So, yeah. Today, I started that out like a podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about... No, okay. This has been something that's been on my mind since 2020. And I've wanted to make some kind of video about it, but it's been rough trying to come up with the words or the ideas for it, I guess, because I feel like all this can be summed up into a simple saying of there needs to be change. And then I don't really know what to say from there because I feel like the change is kind of obvious, in my opinion. And so saying, there should be change and then leaving it at that makes a lot of sense to me. So it's been hard to really grasp ideas or words for this topic. So, if you can hear my dog breathing like a fucking monster in the background, he's loud for no reason. Just ignore him. Anyways, so what is the topic of today? Well, let me tell you. The topic is everything in especially the DID community, but the mental health community as a whole. I don't really know what to say about this as a whole. I could just jump right into specifics, and I probably am going to end up doing that because I don't really know what to say as a whole. There's been a lot of things that have happened or that happen or that consistently go on in the mental health community, especially on TikTok and YouTube, but in other places as well. And I think it's important to have a conversation about it and sit down and be like, hey, this is how it's affecting people, this is what's going on. Kind of like I wouldn't say judgment-free, because I definitely will be judging some things in here, but kind of in a space where it's less of talking about the rights or wrongs or black and white or what people should and should not do, and more of just talking about the obvious wrongs and why they're there and what should be done rather than what is being done, and talking about how adding drama onto drama isn't, helping anything. Just having a conversation about healthy communication not only in personal lives, but it's important on the internet too, and I feel like a lot of people think that it's not. Um, so I kind of just want to talk about that, and stuff in my own little space of things. Hold on, I'm gonna make sure that the camera is still running. Anyways, so one thing that I wanted to go over was mainly the DID community. There has been drama nonstop, ongoing since 2020. There's been some drama here and there before that, not a whole lot, but in 2020 it really spiked, and I don't want to go into details about the obvious drama because a lot of people have covered talking about that, and I think it's been established what's going on, what has gone on. I feel like the people involved in it have talked enough about it, and I don't want to talk about it. It's too much for me. If I were to sit down and make an entire video on that, I would have to be very emotionally numb in order to do that, and very probably caffeinated so that I can joke my way through it. But talking about stuff going on that is surrounding that, how it's affected people, I think is important. It's obviously, people with DID don't have a community in a lot of ways. It's not something that's hugely talked about. When it is talked about, especially in the media nowadays, it's not necessarily in the best of light. And even though people say that it's getting better, in reality, just because it's getting better doesn't mean that it's good. And I know, like, for example, with the whole, what's the movie called? Not the movie, the show. Moon Knight. With the whole Moon Knight thing, like, I agree that it's better than, like, Split or other representations that the DID community has been given. However, that doesn't mean that it's good. There's still a lot of flaws in it, and if you don't know anything about DID, it's a really bad representation of it. And I think a lot of people, there's so many people in the community who are just happy that it's a little bit more relatable, or it's a little bit better than Split, or it's a little bit more accurate, and I think that's good. It's good to be happy about change, but it's not a substantial change that doesn't cause harm. And I think, it's change, but it still causes harm. And that's a whole nother topic that I don't want to get onto right now. That wasn't the point. The point was that, regardless of the change that is going on, there's still a lot that goes wrong. And there's a lot of areas where people with DID just don't have a community. And it's not really talked about a whole lot. And it's important to have community, I think. Obviously, obviously it's good to have community. I don't care what you're part of. It's good to have, unless it's something extremely bad or something like that. If it's something okay, something that isn't, like, extremely bad, it's good to have a community and to have people that you can talk to and who understand you, and like a no judgment place to just kind of talk about what's going on and get advice from other people who experience it, blah 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 blah. I think that's absolutely great. However, the DID community, I can't even call it a community anymore, because hold on. So one of the one of the definitions of community is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. And here's the thing. The DID community does not do that. And it's quite frankly taken a turn that is just really disgusting. And it's gotten to the point where so many people have decided that because they can relate to something, they are allowed in that community. And I'm not fake claiming anyone here, because it's not like I can point someone out specific and be like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm talking about, this is faking. That's not what I'm talking about. Obviously, there are disorders that may feel like DID when they aren't. For example, BPD, schizophrenia at times. And, they're all very different disorders, but when you don't know how one disorder feels in particular, it's very easy, in my opinion, to mix it up. And I'm not saying that everyone does. I'm not saying that there's like everyone who's self-diagnosed or something on the internet is like probably doesn't have DID, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's very easy to find something that you relate to and suddenly decide that you have it. And while on one hand, yes, I 110% agree that discovering yourself, figuring yourself out, trying to find help is really important, you can't do that alone. There is like no situation in life where you could do something like that alone. And I'm not talking just about, diagnosing or something like that. I'm also talking about just discovering yourself in general. It takes a lot of people to do that. For example, if you were alone on an island and all you had is animals, you would not know how you reacted to people. And so therefore, you don't know that aspect of yourself, and you would need people to discover that aspect of yourself. When you're discovering things about yourself, you need people. And that's why I think community is so important, and that's why I also think that the DID community is so harmful, because 99% of times people go into the DID community relating to it, and they try to find a community where they can discover themselves. And instead of discovering themselves, it's gotten to the point of either you do or you don't have it. There's no in between. And if you don't have it, you shouldn't be there unless you're going to educate yourself. And if you do have it, your experiences are 100% valid and blah, 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 blah. It's very black and white. And the reality is that, yeah, it is either you do or you don't have it. But until that's definite and you know for sure, it's in this gray area of I don't know if I have it or not. And you can kind of be in a position where it's like, hey, I think I might have this. I don't know for sure, but I think I might have this. And then, people are like, oh, okay, well, that's valid and that's completely understandable. And you deserve the same love and appreciation that everyone else gets, blah, 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 blah. And I think that's fine. But it gets to a point where it's like, people will come on and say, hey, I think I might have this. And suddenly everyone is like, oh, you probably do have it then. And that's just not the case. It's like this toxic cycle almost of just constantly wanting to validate others because the DID community has not gotten the validation that it needs in order to survive. And so there's this toxic amount of validation that just lets people who are actually faking, like, become like fucking barnacles and just attach themselves there. And I think, like I said, I think validation is good. And I'm not claiming anyone in particular, because like I said, I can't even sit here and think of anyone in particular that I would be like, oh yeah, they're faking. It doesn't even cross my mind, because that's none of my business. I don't know if someone is faking. I can tell you there are people who have faked it, because that's just a proven fact in history. And so there are probably people who are faking it now. I don't know. But I don't know who those people are. And so I'm not going to sit here and be like, I can give an example. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I can give an example. Hold on. That was dramatic, and a lot of things happened. So I apologize. My camera's about to die. So, all I'm saying is that the DID community lacks validation from people who should be validating it, like the mental health community as a whole. And because of that, it has gotten to a point where the DID community toxically lets people in and validates them, when in reality, they probably shouldn't be let in there. And I'm not saying that if you're self-diagnosed, you shouldn't be in there or something like that. If you relate to having DID and you genuinely think, and you've done your research and you genuinely think, hey, I might have this, I think it's okay to be there. I'm not saying it's not okay to be there. However, when it gets to a point where it's just a bunch of, quite frankly, kids who probably don't know for sure if they have DID, probably haven't put the work into figuring it out, and then they're just there and they have all these alters when in reality they could just be their very shifting personalities as preteens. And everyone in the DID community is just like, oh, you're valid, blah, blah, blah. You know, you can be valid without having DID. Like being told, hey, maybe it's possible this and this and that, and this possible blah, have you considered this, is not invalidating someone. And I think people don't understand that in the DID community. And it's caused this very toxic sense of acceptance, I guess. And because of that, it has been what's the word I'm looking for? It has been a breeding ground for drama because of this, because no one can actually decide what is best to do in the community, especially since all the drama hit in 2020. There is no sense of like community anymore. There's just drama, and it's very split up. There's typically the side of, oh, I believe in dissociated or I don't believe in dissociated, and these two sides cannot come to an agreement. They cannot come to a middle ground. And usually people who there's no there's no mixing of these two groups, and it's become very toxic and very not okay. And it does not affect people well. It's not a good place to go in general. If you think you have DID or you've just been recently diagnosed with DID or something, this is probably one of the worst places to go. It will hurt you. No matter what, it will hurt you. And it's horrible because I feel like people just don't talk about that. They're like, oh, validate everyone. And I like the idea of validating people. I really do. But when it gets to the point where it's so black and white, where if you don't validate someone the way that they want, you're a bad person, it's not okay. And we need to have some sense of like individuality in the community. And there is no sense of individuality in the community. I know the community itself is so big on individuality because people are always like, you know, your system is not going to be the same as somebody else's system. But for some reason, regardless of that, there is no sense of individuality. Everyone like has this constant idea that you have to be a particular way in order to be validated toxically. And then if you're not in that way, typically with opinions, guess what? You're no longer valid. And especially with cancel culture in the community, it's just not healthy and it's not okay. And there has to be something that's going to give. And there isn't going to be anything that's going to give. I've completely given up hope on the DID community. There are trolls in there because people, like I said, people don't gatekeep healthily. They only gatekeep unhealthily, or they just don't gatekeep at all, which is also unhealthy. And it has become a breeding ground for trolls, for people who probably fake, and for unhealthy ideas of validation and acceptance. And something has to change. Like, no matter your opinion, you probably can't agree that something has to change. Because I don't think there's anyone in the community who isn't being hurt by it somehow. It is extremely harmful. And if the other thing about the community is that because it has such a lack of sense of community, when someone's attacking that community, suddenly the person who's attacking the community kind of becomes a part of the community. And so you could be in the community and someone starts attacking DID and being like, hey, you know, DID isn't real, or this person is faking, blah, 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 blah. And suddenly, that sense of identity of like, it's almost like the community takes on this identity of being harassed, and now the people who are harassing or people who are fake claiming become a part of the community unintentionally because people are so insistent on dwelling on it and not in the right way. I think it's important to talk about fake claiming and why it's unhealthy and stuff like that, and acknowledge when someone is doing you harm, But when you kind of make it your whole personality, or your whole identity, or like, oh, I have DID, and what makes me have DID the most is the fact that people don't understand or people fake claim. It's not healthy, and it's not okay. And that's another thing about the community, is that it has no sense of identity to it as a whole, which would be DID, because it's the DID community. That other people, like fake claimers, can suddenly come in and they kind of become a part of the community unintentionally. You could not go into the DID community and find a space where there isn't fake claiming. It's in there inherently because it has become a part of the community. Hold on. And I don't really know what to say at this point. I don't know how to say something has to change or this should change or blah, 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 blah. I don't know if there is a change that can be made that would actually stick, because I think so many people have said before there needs to be change. I think people can acknowledge that there needs to be change, but nothing changes, and I think it's because there are no leaders who are actually willing to change. A lot of the people who are kind of big in the community tend to distance themselves from it, and quite frankly, I cannot blame them. The community sucks. And it needs to change. I think it has potential to be an absolutely amazing community, because people with DID can be absolutely amazing people. They're extremely artistic, they're extremely intelligent half of the time. There's so many things about DID and the people who have it that are, unique. And there's definitely space for community for people who have DID. However, I think they deserve it. And what they have right now is not something that they do deserve. They deserve so much better. And something has to change, especially on TikTok and YouTube. I can't really talk about other spaces that much. I know in other spaces there tends to be more gatekeeping on an unhealthy level. But on TikTok and YouTube, there is just a lot of unhealthy spaces that really need to be fixed. And as someone who has been in the community since forever ago, I can't remember how long now, I've seen it grow, I've seen it fall, I've seen it become toxic. I think I have every right to talk about this. Something has to change. The leaders in it have to change. The leaders of separate communities with sub-communities in the whole community need to figure themselves out. Things need to change. And it sucks because I say that I don't think anything is going to change. I wish I could say that I think there would be change, but I genuinely do not believe that anyone is capable of changing the DID community at this point, because we've been asking for change since 2020 and it's just gotten worse. And the identity of the DID community now is to be fake claimed and to be basically a bunch of clowns, because we let ourselves be hurt so much by other people. And it's really stupid, and it's dumb, and we kind of tend to revolve our identity as a community around being fake claimed, and that's really not healthy. Hold on. I don't really know what else to say. I think I've said what I've ranted. I have thoroughly ranted. And I don't know if I'm going to post this. I say that, and I probably am going to post it. Anyways, that's kind of my 2 cents on the matter. This probably is not a good representation of what videos will be like in the future, because this was kind of me just sitting down and ranting about something that has been on my mind for a really long time. And I don't even remember what I've said at this point. It doesn't encompass everything, especially my emotions about it, because I try to rein in my emotions a lot about it. it doesn't encompass everything that I would like it to. And that's okay because I think in order for it to encompass everything, it probably needs like a 20-part video series. And, I might do that at some point. I might sit down and make a bunch of research, do a bunch of research, and make like an extreme video or a lot of videos, a series, just going over everything that I think is unhealthy in the community or communities of the mental health community as a whole. But until then, this is my rant. I apologize if you made it this far. I'm not going to ask anyone to subscribe or like because this is it's not the first video, but it's the first video of the revamp. And I don't think anyone should like this video. It was a mess. But, yeah. Subscribe, no. That's my 2 cents. I'm gonna go. I hope everyone has a great day. Remember to drink water, take care of yourselves. And maybe, potentially, I'll see you next week. Maybe. Probably not.